Hey guys, my name is Josh Gillette. I'm one of the lead pastors at Cascades Baptist Church here in Jackson, Michigan. And there's a message from the Bible, a word from God that I think is very important for you right now. And that's simply this: fear not. One pastor and theologian actually went through and counted up all the occurrences. And there's 365 times where the Bible tells us not to be afraid. Jesus actually says this 21 times. If you didn't know anything else about God, know that God doesn't want you to be afraid. It is critically important. It is fundamentally important to God that you not have fear. Instead, He wants you to step out in faith and in trust in Him. But if we're honest with ourselves, it's hard for us to wrap our head around the idea of not being afraid in perilous times or being afraid of the threat of bad things happening to us. Non-believers have a really hard time getting this. But again, if we're honest with ourselves, as believers, it's still kind of rough to get this right. You have some Christians who are kind of like Chicken Little. They're running around like the sky's about to fall, hiding in basements, refusing to even talk to people on the phone, absolutely terrified of this virus. On the other hand, you have other Christians saying, hey, I know I'm not going to get the virus because God's in control and I don't have any fear whatsoever. And the Bible isn't talking about either of those things. In fact, when He tells us to fear not, it's something fundamentally different. And one of the best passages of the Bible that kind of helps us understand what this whole not fearing thing really means is found in Hebrews chapter 11. There's two sections. One sounds very positive and one sounds very negative, but we really only understand faith and the concept of not fearing if we hold both of those sections together. It begins this way. It says that there were people who through faith conquered kingdoms. They brought justice. They gained what was promised. They shut the mouths of lions. They quenched the fury of the flames. They escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned into strength. They became powerful in battle, and they routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead and were raised to life again. Now stop there for a second, because that's the positive section. And all of us, when we have this concept of stepping out in faith and putting away our fear, we're drawn to that idea. I mean, I want to be the guy who shuts the mouths of lions. I want to be the guy who brings justice to a system of inequality. I want to be the individual who routs foreign armies because I have this wonderful faith in God. But then the passage continues and it goes on and it says this, that some faced jeers and flogging, even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, mistreated. The world was not worthy of them, but they wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and holes in the ground. What in the world is that section? Same faith, same obedience to the command not to live in fear, but their lives went in an incredibly different direction. When we take both of those possibilities and we put them together, we begin to understand what the Bible means when it says not to fear. God's not guaranteeing you an outcome. When the Bible says don't fear, it's not saying you're not going to get the virus. It's not saying something bad's not going to happen to you. When the Bible says don't fear, it's saying this: no matter what happens, whether God steps in and protects you from this thing, or whether God allows you to endure this thing, or whether you succumb because of this thing, your God is in control. That is why we're commanded not to fear. No matter what happens, your King is in control. So be the kind of believer that lives that way. You take precautions, you're careful, you obey the commands that the government has given us to protect everybody, yourself included, and the people around you, but you're living not in a spirit of fear, but in joy and in faith. And then the world looks at you and thinks, how in the world can you live like this in the midst of this panic? Because you know the creator of the universe. That creator of the universe has a plan for your life, and that creator of the universe loves and adores you. And if you're not a believer and you're seeing the world melt and go into panic mode, and it's bringing you back to the basic questions of who are you? Is there a God? Does that God love you? Can you have a connection with that God? Can you have an eternity with that God? I just want to urge you, now is a time for you to put your faith and your trust in Jesus and learn, maybe for the first time in your life, what it truly means not to be afraid.